Yahweh is the one and only, running everything.
Welcome back to Airing the Addisons on Urban Family Talk. Thanks so much for sticking around. I'm Meeke.
And I'm Wil, and as we live as kings, Yahweh.
So we've got a caller, and so here's what we want to do. We want to put the caller on it. Now we're gonna go back a little bit here.
Okay,
we're gonna go back because I think he wants to address my comments about Lecrae.
Okay.
And so we want to give him an opportunity to do that. Lecrae, welcome to Airing the Addisons. Go right ahead with your comments.
Hi, how are you? Appreciate you being a host to me in this impromptu session.
Well, my pleasure. You go right ahead.
Well, actually, I was listening to the actual interview between you and Lecrae, and it came off as pretty. I thought it was a productive session. I thought it was a pretty neutral commentary. Any additional commentary besides that, I haven't had the chance to view, so I'm not sure if there's anything additional to that. But I heard through the grapevine on a Facebook post, someone who had made a comment to the effect of commending you for the exposition, if you will, of Lecrae as a carnal CHH rapper. And I responded to that first with kind of like an incredulous response, if you will, because I didn't really get that. And the conversation spiraled from there just on the general trend that I see among Christians, especially in social media, of just this brash rebuke of anyone with any sort of platform that commits anything that could be viewed as a divergence from traditional mainstream ministry, because Lecrae is an ordained minister, as I am. So the critique usually on him comes through a ministerial lens, which I have no issue with to some degree, but it disturbs me. And I was making this comment with the individual that I don't see the same amount of gleaning from the Paul that we see in like Romans 7 or Ephesians 3 when he's lamenting over his own carnality. So we've become, by and large, as a body, we've become almost programmed to have an opinion, almost programmed to find the chink in the armor of the next minister and to put a flashlight on it, not to apply any sort of intercession and prayer. That's secondary, if it's even on our list at all.
Yeah.
But our first response to anyone in any sort of spotlight, whether it be the truth in his revelation of adultery, whether it be Lecrae in his collaboration with secular artists, any sort of perceived sinful nature, and some are very valid, some are more questionable, but by and large our response is not communication with God, it's communication with other men about how grievous the sin is. And that burdens me. Like, it burdens me a lot because it's a bad witness, because most of our Facebook friends aren't only compiled of only Christians. So you have a whole bunch of unbelievers who are watching this from afar, and they're like, what's the point? Like, the drama and the bickering and all that you guys are doing, I get in the world. So that it kind of you lose your ability when the Spirit does unction you to actually go deeper with someone who perhaps you've been praying for, you've been trying to labor in prayer for, you go to give a word to them, or any sort of thing the Spirit may lead you to do. Your words now have an additional hindrance because, like James 3, you didn't bridle your tongue in a moment of heat or in a moment of passion. And I tried to make the point in the comments, but Facebook comments are very static. So you can't often imply the same amount of tact that you would like. But I was trying to articulate in those comments that this was a generalization I was making. Like I said, I heard your show. I thought it was productive. Anything after that commentary, you mentioned commentary at the beginning. I wasn't aware of any additional commentary outside of what I heard in those few minutes where you spoke with Lecrae. But my comment, by and large, was a mass. It was meant to hit the body of Christ on a more, I guess you could say, wide coverage of the spectrum, because I don't think it's something that's specific only to the arts. you see it more so in the arts, but I think you even see it with Preachers of L.A. Now, is there stuff on there I don't agree with? Absolutely. It's why I've never watched an episode. The trailer was enough. And I'm more so aware of some of those pastors' work, and there are definitely theological points that they have and just lifestyle points that they have that I don't agree with. But the bottom line is that's the problem. We always start our sentences with "I don't agree."
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't agree with this.
Let me say this. Let me say this.
But who are we?
Well, we're Christians. Let me say this, Malachi. Hold on a second, because I've given you like 5 minutes, which is a huge chunk of time. So, because I like to hear from people when they're listening and when they have questions and comments. First of all, I think in fairness, what you are responding to was someone else's assessment of what I said. So you are responding to someone's definition of what my comments were. Okay, so that's fair, that statement, because you're not responding to anything that I said, at least not from what I can ascertain. You're responding to someone else's post on Facebook. So let me say this. I don't do a lot of business, quote unquote, via Facebook. My platform is my radio show and when I write blog posts, okay? And so I felt like the interview with Lecrae was a good interview. But I've been doing radio long enough, and I've interviewed enough Christian music artists that I usually sit down with them for an hour and interview them. And we talk about where they are, where they're going. We talk about how the fans can pray for them, how people, that kind of thing. And so in that kind of interview is where you have an opportunity to go deeper. I don't do, especially when you have issues that are pressing, like I feel like the issue with Lecrae and his secular collaborations. I feel like those are pressing, and I feel like those matter in eternity. I'm not fickle. I don't just jump on every win of, doctrine or, this is somebody's conviction. So, let's go and explore this. I don't have time for that. But what I do feel like is when somebody does something that could be potentially eternally destructive to the souls of men, I feel that warrants commentary, that warrants question. And so when someone dismisses that question as, oh, it's not necessary, it's not worth my time, I have an issue with that. What you don't know, Malachi, is that back in 2004, 2005, as Lecrae was rocking the pavement, okay, we brought him in to our university, and I spent almost the length of a concert on the back wall with his wife, right? They won't remember that, but I feel like I don't need to do that. It's the first time I've ever mentioned it on the show. I don't need to do that. And so I connected with them, listening to their heart and their desire, because we were missionaries, right? And so what happened over the last 10 plus years is that you have a person who the church has trusted to allow to come into their congregation and speak to their youth and call them to a higher level of godliness. And now all of a sudden, almost overnight, you have that person who has such great influence. They have now shifted their focus. And because they have decided that it's not really prudent for them to be a Christian rapper because that pigeonholes them, because they have decided that they have better opportunities to be a missionary, quote unquote, if they don't have the title of a Christian, then now they have taken that philosophy and they have allowed that philosophy to cause them to introduce impressionable youth to people that we are saying, nah, this is not where you're going. And so in the process of watching this unfold and in the process of, listen, I don't know a person out there who loves hip hop who doesn't love Lecrae. And if they don't, they're just looking for a reason not to. This is not coming from a place of, oh, we're angry. Listen, when Lecrae got Natalie Grant to stand in for Jay at the Dove Awards for the song Enough, I looked at Wil and I said, brilliant. Because here's what he's doing. He's expanding his audience. He's saying, hey, y'all check me out. Because there are some people who said, who's that performing with Lecrae? That's Natalie Grant. And then there's some people that said, who's Natalie Grant singing with? That's Lecrae. That was very wise. I have no problems with his collaborations. Back in 2012, Lecrae was interviewed and he was asked about collaborations. He talked about working with 10th Avenue North. He talked about Hillsong. He talked about Chris Tomlin. He talked about the David Crowder Band. I have no problem with that. Back in 2012, Lecrae was asked the question, who do you like to listen to? He said KB, Tadashi, Pro, Andy Mineo, Trip Lee. I love those guys. He even talked about up-and-coming Swoop, okay? I have no problem with that. But when you start introducing an audience of people who love you and respect you and are striving after God. And now you say, I like Kendrick Lamar. And then you have a disciple who gets on and says, if you could work with anyone, Christian or otherwise, who would that be? And that disciple says, I'd like to get in with Kanye and see what cooks up. We have a problem here because leadership is influence. And if we believe that Lecrae has influence over our young culture, and that's what we wanted, here's the problem I have. My problem is, why can't we have successful Christians on the world stage? Why is it that once the world recognized them, somehow they've got to be less Christian? The world doesn't do this. The world does not do this. We are some of the weakest people when it comes to standing up for Christ because we have believed the lie of the world which tells us in order to represent Christ well, you've got to represent him little. That's my problem. Why can't Lecrae win a Grammy and still be Christ-like? That's my problem. I don't have an issue with him. I don't come out left and right coming after people, coming after their neck. My problem is this. I can't tell you how many missions videos I saw where the background was, send me, I'll go. I can't tell you how many churches he lacked no opportunity when it comes to churches, when it comes to ministry opportunities. But I'll tell you, here's the thing that I feel like is a question of integrity, Malachi. This is the question here. Who are the people that are bankrolling your label right now? Who are the people that are sending you out, keeping your schedule packed? You look at Lecrae's website, he's booked up to August. Who are the people that are doing that? It's not the secular community, Malachi. It's the church. And it's very insulting to try to distance yourself from the church for the world's sake, but the world has no love for you. I don't respect that. And so in my follow-up, my request to Lecrae on the air, okay, for all of my joking and my clowning that I do on the air, my request to Lecrae was for a serious, in-depth follow-up interview where we're not going to throw soft pitch balls. And I'm going to say this with respect to what you do, Malachi, because I know that you are a Christian hip-hop artist or a hip-hop artist who happens to be Christian. I don't know which one. But let me tell you this. I know that there are very few Christian hip-hop artists who are going to challenge Lecrae. And this may not be your conviction, but I'm going to tell you why. Because Lecrae right now has a corner of the market that people want to get in on. And so to say anything negative or anything challenging of his lifestyle right now, and not to say that he's out sinning and drinking, and that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the influence that the church gave him, the influence and the access that the church gave him to our youth, that we gave him that. So my question is, what are you doing with it now? And should we now take it back? That's my question. And I think I'm free to ask that question because I'm not afraid that Lecrae won't come on my show. I'm not afraid that Lecrae won't put me on his ticket. And I think a lot of Christian hip hop artists are afraid to challenge him because they don't want to be blacklisted. Man, if we're going to start fearing man right now, let's just cut it out and wait for Jesus. That's my point. I'm not trying to attack him. I'm not trying to slander him, but I'm also not going to live in fear of the great and powerful Lecrae because I know what it's like to stand on a wall with his wife and watch him when he's singing in a room with 30 people. I know what it's like to watch him fresh out of plumb line. And so, I don't talk about that on a regular basis, but I have some deep feelings about this because I feel like the mission has ventured, and I think that's worth calling out. We got to go, Malachi. I appreciate you calling. I appreciate your comments and stuff like that. But no, I'm not coming from a place of trying to hate on Lecrae or trying to move in his face or anything like that. I'm coming from a place of a parent. When you give somebody that kind of influence with your children and they start making shifts, then your children are making shifts. And if any parent will sit back and let that happen, you're not a parent. You've been listening to Airing the Addisons on Urban Family Talk. Until next time.
Man, God bless.